Okay, so what you want to do is you want to protect all the areas down around here from oil, because when we undo these, oil is going to come pouring out, okay? So that's caught more than one person off guard before. So first thing is to cover that. I used a plastic bag and I covered all the belts, and then I stuffed some rags down in here, which I'm going to put some more of up in there somewhere, and then I put an oil pan all the way down on the other side, okay? So this is the Vanos system that needs to come out. We've got those bolts underneath. 1, 2, I think there's 6 of them. I'll tell you what size they are in a minute. This guy needs to come out here. Okay, so this can swing out of the way. This banjo bolt right here needs to come out. I've already started backing that one out, and I imagine oil is going to come pouring out when I do that, so I'm going to protect that as well. Okay, so let's take all these bolts out and then actually undo the center part here of the Vanos system. Okay, so I'm going to protect my coolant hose here. I undo that banjo bolt. Yeah, looks like oil's going to come out. Oh, not much, actually. It's not too bad. Let's move that up and out of the way, being gentle with everything. That is a 10. Okay. That's just a nut. Carefully don't drop it. Keep track of your bolts, please. You really don't want to be mixing this stuff up. It'll be probably pretty obvious where everything goes back on, but you just don't know. Okay, this bolt down here has a washer on it, okay? So, it goes together. Crack it. Okay. It looks like... yeah, that is another 13 on the other side of this. Okay. By the way, I have my car up on ramps, so it's just easy. I don't have to bend over so far. It's worth it. Take the time. This kind of screws right out. I'm just going to screw that in and leave the bolt in. There, no, it's all one piece. Okay. Put these together now so that you don't lose them. Okay. Now we've got these guys underneath here, 2 there, over there. Alright, that is an 8mm. Make sure you're keeping constant pressure on this in, as you do not want to strip these, right? Lefty loosey. Yep. Okay, I'm gonna get a paper towel. It's coming out. Yeah, okay, well maybe my engine's tilted back. Nothing here is really forced down that much, so you shouldn't really have a hard time getting stuff undone. There's the oil. Yep. Oh, don't drop important things. So much oil. Oh. It's all good. Okay. These come out really easy, as it turns out. I hit these with PB Blaster just because. I always do. the little guy down here too. That one. Little clip, okay. I believe the Vanos kit gives you a new O-ring for these, which I will replace. Yep. Okay, so this was a T30 Torx, okay. I had to find a little bit that fit in my little holder here. Now these are reverse threaded, so you actually tighten them to loosen them. Okay, so you turn that way. Okay, so I'm gonna take this off here. This guy in here, all the way back in. Make sure these are sitting well, right? You really don't want to strip these. Yep, there we go. Okay, so, and more oil is coming out, obviously. Oh, that one. Go. Okay, now the whole Vanos unit can just come straight back out, assuming that I managed to remove all of the things that were holding it on. Yep, there we go. There we go. Oil, all the oil. Let's move over to the workbench. Okay, now we are looking at the Vanos unit on the table. Protect the area. Oil will still leak out, and we don't want to damage any of these things. Okay, so we've got the intake piston, intake piston's in here, exhaust piston is in here. So when the pistons come out after these covers come off, then just keep them lined up. I think they're interchangeable, but let's not mess around anyway, right? So these, I already loosened that one to see. These are not that hard. Okay. Yeah. One of these is spring-loaded. Don't remember which one it is, so I'm going to be careful with both. Like there's a spring in there. Now, once again, I'm only doing the seals, not the whole Vanos rebuild. So I'm just going to take the pistons out, replace the seals, and then put everything back on. That's annoying. Careful, and there we go. Okay, there's the spring on the inside. It looks like that's wider on the bottom, higher on the top, so make sure the wider part goes back to the front direction. Let's not forget that, shall we? And there is the piston itself. Okay, so I'm going to clean these up when I get that one out. And we'll come back and I'll show you how to do the seal. Again, that's very hardened and flattened, and that is why potentially Vanos wasn't working properly. See, that's got a lot of play in it right there. Okay, let's take the other one out. Go. Alright, let's clean everything up. Okay, so I removed the seals from this piston using the method that they recommended, which I'm not a big fan of because if you're not careful with the blade, it's easy to kind of score the edges here, and you don't want to do that, right? So these do go in here, and they're not like, you know, carefully machined. They're more about the seal that creates, like the actual seal, the new ones I'm putting in that creates the seal. Not that big of a deal, but my O-ring and the outer seal was incredibly stiff. Look at that. That's just like they're rock solid. Okay, and they weren't sealing at all, so I'm excited to see how much different the car is going to feel when I get these in. All right, so the method that they tell you to do, be very, very careful, obviously. X-Acto knife, just with a rocking motion, cut right through like that. Okay, careful not to go right to the edge where the other part is. Okay, on both sides. And then it comes out pretty easily. Alright, that's one part, and then the next one is on the inside. This one's a little more difficult to be careful with. If you had a newer set, you could probably just use an O-ring puller and reach in there, but mine are so rock solid that I can't do that, and I have to cut them. Careful. Whew. Okay, so once you have the O-rings off here, there's a little one there, a little one here, right? You need to put the new ones on. So the brown ones from your Bison Systems kit goes on the small part. Okay, pretty easy to get on. I just used a little bit of oil, which I did have sitting around here in a little tray a second ago. Anyway, it'll still pop on pretty easily because there's still oil on these. So these are the exterior seals. They're a little bit harder. I just soaked them in warm water to loosen them up, and then you put a little bit of oil on them to get them a little bit slicker so that you can put them on. The way that I did this, I didn't have to stretch them or anything. I just kind of hooked the one side on here, make sure they don't stretch, and then I just worked it all the way around, right? Just be careful with it. You don't want to hurt the seal, obviously. Just wanted to get it over the lip. Almost there. There we go. Okay. And then straighten it out if you can. Okay, and then there's a procedure we have to do. We have to actually put it in this thing and let it sit for a minute so that it seats the seal properly. We'll do that in a second, but let's put the seals on the other side first. Okay, so O-ring, brown O-ring is in there already. Okay, a little bag of water here. Wipe it off. A little bit of oil on it. Okay, just seat one side, and then we will work it around. It goes on fairly easy. Yeah, there we go. Sits in. The warm water really helps. I think I tried it before and it didn't really want to go. One side. These are a little bit more finicky. The small one. Again, you don't want to fold it over. You don't want to twist it. You don't want it folded. Good. Okay. I'm going to push this one into this piston. And the way you do this is you put it on an angle like that, and then you rotate it in. Turn it, no. There it is. And in. Okay, just let it sit there. Made itself properly. Do the same on this side. Oh, we'll get a little bit of oil on it. There we go, that's in. Let that sit there. 5-10 minutes, I'm gonna go get something to drink. Be right back. Alright, these have sat for a little while, so I'm just gonna spin them out of here. Okay, and yeah, see, that looks like it's seated very well now. Okay, I'm gonna put a little bit of oil on this one here, and I'm going to get it into this. Okay, on an angle, like I said, and work it in. That went in really easy. Okay, this one's going to come out. Okay, that's seated well. A little bit of oil on this one now. And yeah, that's a nice tight fit. Good. Okay, I'm just going to leave that there, sit for a little while, make sure those are seated, and I'll check them after. I also replaced a little O-ring came with these for these caps here, with the things we pulled out when we were taking the Vanos off, with a little brown O-ring. Cut the old one out. Done. Okay. Pretty much ready to go and put it back together. Just gonna let these sit. Okay, let's put everything back together. I cleaned all the mating surfaces with brake cleaner, okay, and wiped them off. Now I'm gonna put a thin coat of oil on all of these walls here, around here, on that side. Okay, and there. Make sure you have the corresponding side, obviously, that goes. Alright, let's make these back together here. That goes in nicely, all the way. Okay. Now our exhaust spring is there, right? So let's just, first of all, make sure we figure out exactly which way this goes. Okay, that is okay. So that's how actually the oil accesses. That's cool. So it gets pumped in through that seal right there. Anyway, so the spring goes down. Make sure you put this on and line that up. Okay. Now we're going to compress. Press, screw in there, keep pressure down. Now I'm going to torque these in a second. It is 10 Newton meters. Okay. So first ratchet them down. I'm going to go in a crisscross pattern when I tighten them. Finally, right? But don't go too tight. We need to torque them down. Okay. I'm still compressing the spring at this point. It's snugged up. Still compressing the spring. There we go. Okay, let's do our torque. This is already set to 10 Newton meters. There's the click. 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 And there we go. Okay. Now check your the walls of the cylinders again. Make sure there's no debris in there, right? I'm actually going to wipe this out just because I'm paranoid. Okay. I'm going to put another fresh coat of oil in there. Side here. Okay. I don't wear gloves for stuff like this normally. I just wash my hands after. No, it's not super good for your hands sometimes with the different chemicals and whatnot, but I'd really like to be precise with what I'm doing. I don't like to bully things. Okay, so we're going to push the cylinder back into that, just like before. Ooh, careful. Okay, all the way in. Now that extra hole there goes on that side. Clicked in. Yep. This one's easy, there's no spring. Right. Okay. Oil on my ignition coil. Be careful. There, that's good. I torque these down 10 foot-pounds, and then we're going to reinstall the unit back onto the top. Okay. Click. Go. Okay, and this unit is ready to go back in. Okay, so I'm going to put it back in the car, and these, after the bolt goes in, these little clips here click in the hole, and they just seal and click in, right? Now there's still oil pouring out. Where's it even coming from? Come on! You think you get it all, and then you just haven't. I've made a mess of everything. I did that. Okay, let's put it back in the car. Okay, so I'm going to replace this gasket here, okay, because it was beaten up, and you should anyway. So I cleaned these surfaces with some brake cleaner, wiped it off very carefully, okay. I'm going to go get the gasket, and I'll be right back. Okay, so the new gasket goes on over top of these. Over that. Over that. Make sure it's seated nicely. And make sure we line up all of the bolts. It just slides back on, just like that. What is stopping you from going on? Go. Okay. Other thing that's very important, I've heard of this, I didn't do it myself. Don't touch any of the belts, don't turn over the engine, don't turn the crank or anything when you have this off, because it messes up what's going on with the actual valves. Okay, so be very careful of that. I don't know exactly what or why happens, but just don't touch anything. Simple answer. Cool. Alright, let's put the bolts back in here, okay, which were these little guys. Okay, remember they were a small Torx, okay, and they're reverse threaded, so that means I'm going to loosen them to reinstall them. Okay, one here, off. Things are going well so far. That's very rare. Okay, let's put all the bolts in here, including the stud bolt. Okay, these only get torqued down to 8 Newton meters. 8 Newton meters. Okay, so nothing serious there. And you're supposed to tighten them in like a crisscross pattern, okay, to evenly work this on and made it down properly. I'm just going to thread all of these first. Once. Then you'll look something like that there. You'll second. All right. 10. 10. Okay. Torque wrench is set. Let's tighten them down. That's not very much torque, so just make sure you're listening, paying attention to your torque wrench. Okay, these little guys in here that I put in, they get done to 8 Newton meters as well, which is not very much, and they're reverse threaded, remember? So that is in. Once they go there, they tighten really quickly. There's not much room there. Okay, now we're going to put these little caps back in. Okay, these little guys. It just goes over top, right in through there. Yeah, that's seated. Okay, now the cover pieces go on. Now these caps actually go to 37 pound-feet or 50 Newton meters. Okay. It's a little bit more serious than the other stuff. There it is. That's probably why they gave me a hard time when they were coming off. Go. Done and done. Okay. Let's start reattaching all the sorts of electrical connectors and bits and bobs that we're kicking in and around out here. Okay, so this guy goes that way. Okay, he's on. This little bracket right here. How does this work again? This comes there. Let's tighten that down actually. Oh, nope, wasn't 13. Click. This guy here. Click. And just gonna snug that up. Not gonna tighten it too much. Snug. Go. Don't have a torque spec for that. Don't know why. Oil line, nitro bolt. Back down here. This thing goes all up in there. Yeah. Good. Okay, and that is a 19 millimeter, which doesn't actually need a lot of torque. Just do it till it's snug. I'm gonna do mine a little bit tighter because brush washer goes. Good. That is on. Those are on. Let's put some electrical connectors back on. Okay, so all the electrical connectors are back on, right? It's time to put the valve cover gasket back on. I'm not going to show you how to do that, as I said. There is some, I can't remember what it's called, kind of like a goop, whatever, that needs to go here to cover these. Then it just goes back on. Make sure, I'm replacing the valve cover gasket just because I'm in here, I might as well. You can do spark plugs while you're here too. It's really obvious how to do that. I'm going to remove my secondary air pump and I have a block off plate. I'm going to do that. That'll probably throw a check engine light, but I don't care at this point, obviously. So let's get everything put back together and see how it runs. Okay, so I've left it for a little while after I actually did the seals before I'm going to test it, because I wanted to work them in. You're supposed to work them in. Now, I have the sprint booster installed. If you've seen that video, I'm going to turn that completely off so it's not going to interfere with my my impressions of it. So, Vanos seals. Yes, there is a difference. You notice it most below 3,000 RPM. there's a pretty significant more amount of available torque down low, which is the problem. That's why you do the seals, because you lose that, right? So I'm in 3rd gear, right down at 2,000 RPM, and it surges forward. It didn't do that before. You had to be really kind of above 3,000 RPM to really get that, get into the torque band, right? So now this is improved lower end pretty substantially. There's 4th gear at 2,500 RPM. Yeah, it's not like a massive difference, but it is definitely a difference. And the reason I didn't really I wasn't too worried about doing it super quick is because I use the car mostly for aggressive driving, so I spend most of the time up in the higher end of the rev range anyway. So the lower end torque loss wasn't a massive thing for me. But it feels generally like there's more torque all the way across the rev range. For driving around, like just in the city, it makes a big difference. If you haven't done it, I would definitely do it, or have somebody do it. Now the DIY that you watched was pretty long and maybe not that informative. As I said at the beginning, I recommend you use mine in conjunction with other instructions or other people's DIYs, because certain people have different ways of doing things and you might get different angles and stuff, right? My advice to you for doing this is to take your time with it. It's not actually that hard, okay? It's not a super technical DIY. I think what made it feel easy for me is since I wasn't doing anything that had to do with the suspension, there were no seized bolts or nothing was easy to strip or something like that, right? So for me, everything was just like everything just kind of came off, it was fixed, it went back on, everything's wonderful. Be very careful putting your valve cover gasket, or sorry, your valve cover back on. They could be brittle from the heat over time. You really don't want to crack it, so be very gentle when you're torquing those bolts down. Other than that, I don't think I have any serious pieces of advice. Just as I said, leave an entire day at least. Take your time with it. And I didn't do the Vanos rattle fix because I didn't have any Vanos rattle. So there you go. I just did the seals, and that just needed to be done. I'm glad that I did it. It's definitely easier to pull away. Yeah, like just pulling away in 1st there. Barely throttle, just kind of pulls in 2nd gear, pulls you right out. Yeah, definitely makes it easier to drive around. Makes the whole car feel a little bit torqueier. Okay. Now, my seals were pretty rock solid and they were pretty like bad, but I'm not experiencing a difference to the level that you hear about. Okay, so like for me, it's not like, oh my gosh, I've got so much more torque. It's not really quite like that. It's like, yeah, it's there. Yeah, it's substantial. Yes, do it. It's not like if you're, you're afraid to do it yourself, you don't have the budget right now, that's fine. Don't feel like you're missing out on 90% of your E46, right? It's definitely something you should do eventually, but it's a fun car. It's not the end of the world if you can't do it right now. Do you know what I mean? So hopefully my DIY helped you. Hopefully my thoughts have helped you here. I think I'll be doing some more just basic maintenance coming up soon. I have a couple things that are bothering me about the car that I gotta get it ready for next season. So that will be separate from my actual video series on prepping for competition next year. So hopefully that'll help you out too. Alright guys, I will talk to you later.